My first Brous folder was the SS Flipper with liner lock. By now everyone knows the lockup on that one was not done masterfully. I had uploaded a video back in the day attacking the product, but took it down at Mr. Brous's request. My reasoning then was that when safety is involved, it's important to get the info out as soon as possible and as much as possible. And regardless, no one in this industry is going to not back up their product and their craftsmanship. So mainly it was just to let my customers, who are also my viewers, know of the possible lock problems. And that's just my way of doing business. Now you fast forward from Mr. Brous's original, more homebrew designs. If you've been following him from the beginning, I remember there's being articles talking about his biomech theme, and he's had some good exchanges and collaborations with some really veteran knife makers. And you got all those experiences now compiled into this, the T4. The construction on this thing is rock solid. It feels even more than rock solid. It feels like a granite building that you could stand on. What makes this knife so interesting is that most liner locks, or any type of folder in general, even some of the overbuilt frame locks, you can still feel some flex. The knife doesn't feel completely rock solid. And even some of those overbuilt knives, when you do like aggressive motions like that, there is a point where some hyperextending happens. Something vibrates, titanium flexes, the stop pin, everything in the knife overextends, and you end up with like an exaggerated, more engaged, deeper lock, and then that causes premature lock wear because it's getting stuck. But this knife doesn't have that, which is just crazy because it's such a hefty blade, and it has a strong detent and these fast bearings, and yet despite that, it doesn't have this problem. And that is truly impressive. That is something most makers, I've known and seen now, they still haven't accomplished. Now, I can't say this universal, durability, this robustness, is across Mr. Brous's entire line of folders, as I don't have those other products. But for this folder, it has that secure craftsmanship. The fit and finish is mostly consistent. You do see like little gaps, little nicks every once in a while, but nothing close to bad. Nothing at all like other production knives out there. As you can see, perhaps a little. Heck, it looks like a dog hair's gotten in there. Okay, right where that dog hair is. There you go. You can see just a little bit. Just little spots here and there where maybe corners don't match perfectly. The blade has the most handwork, which is then my favorite part. I actually like the blade the most out of this whole thing because this is where you see the hand rubbing, the human part of it. You can see some variations just to the grinding, to the bevel work, just the motion of someone's hand. You can kind of see how there's that. It's just some little ripples, but that's nice because that's where you get the hand part, the sharpening or the hand sanding. There is a lot of CNC going on. Probably one of the most interesting spots is the opening hole. That is actually my favorite spot. For those who are, you think about just a CNC machine or even a drill press. I think this really makes you wonder how does that get done? And how do you have those? You can see here, right there, as they step up, you can somehow create the straight, outside the outside line, the outside form of this hole. It's nice. A really exquisite detail, and I'm not sure whether this is just because the hardware that he received he had to retap, or because he did this on purpose, but this is going to be tough for the camera to catch. Inside there you can see there's two Torx, a very miniature Torx. It's tapped for miniature Torx inside, and then this larger Torx for the actual, which you actually see on the more towards the surface of it. So it has like 2 tappings. Same thing with even the little tiny screws. There, if you can see on the bottom screw, see how there's like a second step in, like it has a shelf almost in the side of the screw, because it's tapped twice. And all the screws have this, almost like this double gear going on. You guys can see it. The liners are skeletonized. You can see down in there, over here. And you can see the wire jet markings from it being cut. But at least the liners have a nice clean polish to them. You can tell that Mr. Brous takes the fit and finish more serious than some other knife makers. And at least he's taken the attention to, and the time to at least clean up the liners, make them have a smooth polish to them. There is a lot of bead blast going on, and typically on stainless steel liners, there's a high polish to prevent rust from forming, because it's a smooth surface. When you have bead blast, you create little tiny pores in a sense. So I wouldn't recommend getting this knife wet, even when handling it. These liners have a soft bead blast to them. They are stainless steel, even the lock side. The advantage to that is you're going to have a long-lasting knife. Stainless steel liner locks, it's gonna last a long time compared to a titanium liner lock. You can see, with such an early lockup, just how long it's going to be. And I've been flicking this thing quite aggressively a lot, and it's just holding up. In terms of deployment, the knife has a unique feel, definitely. The combination of a strong detent plus these bearings and a heavy blade make for a very powerful like jolt. When you open it, it is very cool. I think people who've never experienced that feeling, it is interesting. It is very strong and pronounced. You can gravity it out, and it doesn't happen too easily. So it's not like it's dangerous in any way. It's just with force and intention you can do it. For me, the knife doesn't attract or evoke any specific feelings because it doesn't look purpose-built in my mind. For example, a Coldstone Micro Recon makes you start thinking where you want to pocket this little tiny knife. The design here is very straightforward. It's not too pointy. It's got a reverse Tonto, a modified Warncliffe. If this basically just dropped down, you basically got sort of a Warncliffe, depending how the angle of the blade comes out. It's not a negative angle blade. It comes semi-sharp. It loses some of the sharpness towards the curve. Definitely it's a little bit more sharp right here. I never use this to cut anything. So it's nice. You get Warncliffe style performance, and then you get this sort of Tonto style tip. Very reminiscent of a hinder, actually. It's very much from up here. It looks like a hinder. So you get some robustness, definitely. You get twice the tip, in a sense, of a paramilitary. The blade isn't shaped in any specific way. Whatever you can do with a Warncliffe, then that's what you're going to do with this knife. It's not meant to do emergency cutting. It's not going to excel perhaps at slashing. It's not a negative angle like the Spyderco Military. So it's in the hand. It comes out. It's a pretty straight knife. I would say it's a general EDC style blade that gives up some utility for this extra thickness. It may have some tactical aspirations because there's a flipper right here, guard, but that doesn't really match the deep carry kind of ideology here. The guard is slick. It's not that really catching, but it's more the choil here created by the G10 anyway that really secures the grip. And there's a lot of traction basically because there's 3D jimping everywhere. Basically every single part right here where there's a cutout, or even this bevel, all those are basically jimping. So it definitely has like almost a ZT-like feel. You're going to feel a lot of scratching on your hand. If you don't like that, if you don't love jimping, you're not going to love this knife. And it's a thick knife. It reminds me of Terzula, Bob Terzula and his customs. When you take 2 liners and you add 2 scales, this is what you end up with, a very thick knife. But it's a great style of knife. I like it. Liner locks, especially line locks done well, have the fail-safe liner. It's great. It is heavy, so it's not like the clip is going to keep it steady in your pocket. In the SHOT Show 2014 interview, Mr. Brous was talking about how some people want less deep pocket carry. They want the clip to be more this way, but Mr. Brous prefers it further up. And I agree. I mean, some knives don't always have to be emphasized on tactical. That's why we have different manufacturers, different makers, and we buy from different people. And sometimes it's nice to have deep carry. So this is for that kind of person. In terms of applications of what you're going to use this knife for, I'm just going to be honest, I'm not certain. I think it's more of an artistic piece. There obviously are design cues, that kind of follow this continuous theme. And I'm put out there, if this was a titanium scale, either on one side or both sides, and it had this same machining, then this thing would fetch a fortune. I mean, it would be really far out there. But as it is, I don't see military. Imagine this: police officer, women, backpacker who's hiking, an office worker, a warehouse worker, or even a construction worker. Would they carry this and use this for their job? I really think this is more of an enthusiast's piece. As such, either people are going to buy it and save it for a long time, or they're going to carry it for a while and then trade it. But I will say that if it's deployed and ready to go in a fight, it's definitely a secure knife that you can defend yourself with. These ergonomics and jimping, it's going to create a solid grip. I mean, it's in some ways, if you like your Emersons and you like your ZTs and you combine the feeling of both, that's what you have here. What I personally love about this folder is the action. It doesn't matter how you deploy it. That combination of detent, the weight of the knife, the blade itself, and then those bearings. It creates a knife that is just, it has this sort of authority when it comes out. And I love the rock-like solid feel. I mean, it feels more solid than even a Hinder. But as a user, it's not like a Sebenza. That's what I would compare it to. It doesn't encourage me to take it apart and maintenance it. And as a design, it isn't revolutionary in any way either. It doesn't, have perhaps a unique bushing or, kind of like how the Sebenza has that little unique way of taking the blade out and putting it back in. And personally, I don't really feel the excitement to use the knife, more just play with the knife and flip it. And realistically, it's not pocket friendly. So it's going to see less pocket time, carry time for the average person. That depends on the person, because I'll EDC this in my pocket, the Army Tech, but when it comes to this thing, that's just how I feel towards it. What I really take from the experience of the T4 is the construction. At this point, Mr. Brous wants his D2 to be kind of like Mr. Emerson's 154 cm, and that's starting to be cool because he's shown what he can do with the steel through all these years of the different folders and fixed blades. He understands the limitations of the steel. He's talked about it in videos where it's too thin, it might fracture there. He has an understanding of the material, and it's better to have quality over quantity if this is his forte, D2. And this knife's final combination of kind of Mr. Brous's original thick stock designs, combined with now this mastered kind of action, this combination between weight, bearings, deployment, detent, is, to me now, I would say, years later, this is the authentic Brous Blaze folder. This is who he is. It's a throwback in my mind sort of to his original triple threat fixed blade because of how stocky that knife was, the handle and the blade. The final thing, what I want to see now is the same robustness right here, but matched with a design that justifies a heavy knife that you would want to carry. So what I'm suggesting here is like a Brous Hest folder. That would be awesome.